We're going to be joined by the professor, Daniz Selman, coming up in a little bit. But before we get to that, Bo Wolf, Zach Berman, from the jump, we are on with Coach Flinn, the wide receivers coach at Princeton. You know him. You love him. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, guys. Draft season. Let's get it.
Let's get it.
I love that. Right there. Right to business. Draft season.
Let's
my kind of guy
let's
right
get
there.
right to it. Let's talk wide receivers. Now, the Eagles are not going to, realistically have a chance at one of these top receivers in the draft, even if they wanted to add that position. But we've spent some time together, Coach, watching these guys. This is your expertise. I want to give you a chance, and I know that Zach may not be on board with this, but trusting the eyes, there's a guy in this class who you and I liked a little bit more than Marvin Harrison Jr. Who was wide receiver 1 for you?
Yeah, so we watched him actually in this very room right here, which you may confuse for a cell in the county jail. It's actually my office.
I was going to say Cold War bunker.
Yeah, we're safe against anything here. Anything happens, we're good.
That's where Einstein was, literally, right? So, yes.
Not far from here. Yeah, not far. Big wide receiver guy, Albert. I like Neighbors.
E equals wide receiver 2.
I like Neighbors. Yeah, I've liked Malik Neighbors as number 1 for a bunch of months. I think he's just so explosive, so good with the ball in his hand. There was a while I liked Odunze as much as Marv, but I think Marv is ahead of Rome in that way. But I think Neighbors after the catch, Neighbors against man coverage, he's just a different guy. He's explosive. You see him a lot against the best DBs in the country. It's kind of like DeVonta Smith in the respect of who he's going against is as good as you're going to go against in terms of the back end guys in the SEC and with the schedule they play. And he's just running away from people. And even in the throws that are short, he's breaking tackles. He's explosive. I just think he adds an element as a ball carrier that's a little bit better than Marvin Harrison. Again, I think they're both great players. But I've been that way for a little while. I've watched not everybody, but most of them. And I say that because last time I was on, we were talking about the Eagles offense, and I said I hadn't watched the film, and I got absolutely crushed afterwards, which was kind of cool. But this time I actually did watch the film and do my homework. I didn't just show up randomly after the holidays spouting takes. But I do like Neighbors as the number 1 wideout overall.
What do we make of that, Zach?
Yeah, look, it's at that point, I think it's a matter of preference, right? I can see it with Neighbors. I prefer Marvin Harrison Jr.
Totally reasonable, yeah.
I prefer Roma Dunze over Neighbors.
Interesting.
But I'm not gonna say picking. I think all 3 of them are really good players. To me, a Dunze in terms of like the size. You talk about the ability to have production after the catch. You look at the overall production that he had with just a loaded group around him. I was so impressed with Dunze at every data point throughout the year. But look, Marvin Harrison Jr., when you see Philadelphia, PA, you see St. Joseph's Prep. And then
there it is.
This is what I'll say about Marvin Harrison Jr. And you guys can all back me up on this. He was on a wide receiver core that has like all pros on it. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith in Jigba. And he was the best player on that group, right? And that's not me saying that. Like the Ohio State guys will tell you. And I think Brian Hartline, their wide receivers coach, said that. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. was the best player in that group, right? And so I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a star for the next 10 years. But I think all 3 of them, this is a good year to be needing a wide receiver in the draft because you're going to get a guy at 10 or 12 or maybe 8 or 9, let's say, who would typically be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I don't know that if I was actually the one making the decision, I could bring myself to take someone over Marvin Harrison Jr. given the profile and the production and even like just the groupthink. But just watching Neighbors, it's like Marvin Harrison is built to be like the perfect wide receiver, and it seems like everything he does is like to perfect the craft. Whereas Malik Neighbors is out there just like trying to steal your food. Like
he's going to melt your face with the ball in his hand. That's what he's trying to do. Yeah, he's running right at your nose and saying, "Tackle me."
And not for nothing, a full year younger and just as productive in his college career. So just worth noting. Now,
also real quick, DeVonta Smith's Heisman Trophy ballot, he had Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison Jr. He thought Malik Neighbors was the best receiver in college football last year. He liked Harrison Jr. more as a prospect, but he thought Neighbors was the best receiver last year in college football.
I like that. You had that scoop on allphly.com. Good stuff. All right, let's move beyond those top three guys, Coach. Who is like the next guy beyond that group who has caught your eye that you really like?
I mean, I like Brian Thomas kind of for the same reasons. The guy I like more than a lot of people is Keon Coleman. You know, he ran 4.6, I think. And so everybody's like, oh my God, it's over for him. He's cooked. And I thought Torrey Smith had a good tweet on that. He's like, 4.6 is actually fast for anybody that thinks like 4.6 is slow. Like, that's actually running pretty good. And Torrey Smith was a fast guy. I like Coleman's body control. You know, his ball skills are awesome. He makes some really absurd plays, particularly early in the year. Like, I know he was banged up a little bit at the end, but for the first month, 6 weeks of the season, you know, the film I watched, I thought he was the best receiver in the country, and then kind of tailed off there a little bit, I think, when he got dinged. But he was really good. You know, I like AD Mitchell. You know, as a bigger guy who was a hard edge guy when he was at Georgia, like you just see him blocking and doing the dirty work, but also winning one-on-one. And you know, I think he's got an upside as a route runner. I think he can get better. You know, Ladd McConkey for me has been a journey. There was so much early hype about Ladd McConkey, like I didn't want to like him. Like I thought some of the comps I think are ridiculous. Like they're like, oh, he's like Antonio Brown.
Right.
What? No, he's not. I think he'll be a good pro, but I think he's way overvalued on a lot of people's boards. But I think he'll be good. Like I don't think he's gonna be a bust or he stinks or anything like that. And then again, I kind of yada it, but the guy. So every, you know, this is a flex, but every Sunday come in here and I just try to see the teams that were the best on offense, get ideas for the week, you know, stuff like that. So I watch Washington every week because Washington I thought was the best offense in college football. And so, you know, I watched Rome Odunze every week, and he was spectacular. You know, again, I don't think he's as explosive as the other guys, but you know, like if you watch the explosive plays on him, it's not nearly as good as Neighbors or Marv. But if you watch him like contested, fourth down, low red, you know, all that stuff, like it's the old, you know, high floor, low ceiling. So I do think he is in that group of three guys, and I do think he'll be a good player pretty quickly. You know, some of the other guys, again, I think I like Troy Franklin more than a lot of people do.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you say that. You and I are thinking alike.
Yeah, he's you know, I understand all the knocks, but like you put the film on, and again, he's a guy they hung their hat on when it mattered. Third down, fourth down, red zone. You know, against USC, I think every catch was like an 85-yard catch against USC, which now, again, USC didn't knock a lot of guys down on defense very often, but I think I probably like him a little bit. Him and Keon Coleman, I think I probably like a little bit more than most.
You know, I've got my wide receiver buckets ready to go, of course. And you're looking for guys who check all three boxes, over 1,000 yards receiving in a season, better than 4.5 speed, and did not stay the entirety of their college career, left early. There are only 5 guys in the class who hit it. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, who you mentioned, Xavier Worthy from Texas, and your boy Troy Franklin. So those are your 5 there. I have a question for you.
Xavier Worthy's spectacular, man. I mean, I know he struggled catching the ball, but somebody's going to take a flyer on him and as a guy that can just hit home runs. And I think they're probably ready to do that.
Why is it that Xavier Worthy was the more productive of the two at Texas with AD Mitchell, ran faster, and is still considered the second of the two as a prospect? Zach, why don't you tell me why that is?
Well, I think actually AD Mitchell has caught on some steam during the pre-draft process when you look at the size-speed combination. That's what jumps out. You know, 6'2", a sub 4.4 40. But AD Mitchell, and this is what I like about him. You go back to even when he was at Georgia, and Coach Flinn said when you're playing down there, it's the DeVonta Smith thing. You're playing against cornerbacks you'll see in the pros. You look at AD Mitchell's games, going back to Georgia, when he played against Michigan, when he played against Ohio State, when he played against Alabama, you know, when he played against Alabama last year, he's scoring touchdowns in every one of those games, right? He's someone who, now I know touchdowns are not necessarily like a stat that could be sticky, but he makes big plays in so many of these games. He's a pro. Xavier Worthy is electric. I think the question with Xavier Worthy is you need a coach as good as Coach Flinn sometimes, right? Who because there's a thought you need to scheme him up. And I always say, if that's the thought, like that's what coaches are there for. If the guys can just run out and and just play in the backyard. It's me coaching my son's flag football team, right? Like the idea,
Undefeated as head coach, by the way.
no, but the idea
Harder to do than you should. That's harder to do than you're giving yourself credit for, right there.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm always skeptical of, or I never like to hear, you need a real creative coach. Like, yeah, that's what they're paid to do is take a guy who's special talents and make the special talents sing. So I wouldn't be worried about Xavier Worthy just because you need to find ways to scheme him up.
I think that's fair. Coach, you have any good advice for Zach? He's got his second game tonight.
Oh, second flag football game tonight?
Yes.
Is the center eligible in your league?
Yes,
Zach,
he is.
After he hikes it? Yeah,
Yep.
he's money in the bank. Like whenever there's a problem, just go to the center. They forget that almost every time.
Game-winning touchdown last week, thrown to the
Really?
center. Oh, yes.
doubt.
My
Yes,
man.
yes,
All right.
yes.
Nice
Center
job.
eligible. Yep.
Since you watched the Washington tape a lot, I want to ask you about Jalen Polk, who is, I think, my favorite guy of the day two guys relative to where he seems to be ranked in the class. I really liked what I saw from Jalen Polk.
Yeah, they were, again, as a group, I thought they were the best in the country. I mean, I thought Penix, again, it's probably why I like Penix more the most, but I think he's underrated. I mean, if you look at I'm going to test the numbers here, they're all pretty good. I think it's hard as the second guy sometimes to get him incorporated, but Brian Greb of Washington did such a good job. Yeah, if the Eagles got him in the second or the third round or the second, whatever that is, the second day, I'd be all for it.
I teased on yesterday's show. I said there's a guy who I really like on day two, who I think in a different year would go day one, and you took the words out of my mouth. That was Troy Franklin. When I look at Troy Franklin, what am I missing? Or I guess what is it that is it just the strength of this year's class that he's falling down? Because you look at the time speed, you look at the college production. The knock you hear is that he's 178 pounds. I've heard that knock with a wide receiver in Philadelphia who's about to get paid $25 million a year, right? Like, I get it. I wouldn't take someone who doesn't have production, who's an outlier in terms of the slight frame. But every time I watched Oregon, he was running past the guys on the other team. To me, there's value in doing that on a week in, week out basis.
Your first point is a good one. Like, the class is deep. And so when there's that many good players, they're looking to ding you for really anything they can find. And, the size speed deal, it's funny with DeVonta, like, he was so good fundamentally. He's so good with his ball skills. He's like almost an outlier. He is an outlier, really, and he's that good. I don't think Franklin is in that boat. And I think that's probably why he's been knocked down a little bit. Again, because when you go up, like I said, there is a Keon Coleman, there is a Marv,
Sure.
There is a Roman. There are guys that are size, speed guys with the production. It's funny, though, because when I say this to the recruits in here all the time, like, even in our room, we have guys that are 6'5", we have guys that are 5'7". Like, the position is generating separation from somebody else. It's getting yourself open. Like when I saw you guys last year at the Eagles OTA or whatever that was, like, when you look at the line at the Eagles, you're like, A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith play the same position. Like, how's that even possible?
Yep.
So I think, but I remember when DeVonta was coming out, there's a couple scouts and guys that coach in the league that were like, no way, off the board, can't do it, not big enough, guy that small's never done it. No. Like, I think what gets knocked down right now is production, because they know that, okay, these measurables always work. And when in truth, it's the always isn't what happens. There are guys that can do it, but I think, again, there's enough people that meet those marks ahead of him on the board that I think that is, he's got ding for that.
So sort of along those lines, philosophically, like if you were the one in charge of designing the Eagles offense, coach, and Howie Roseman came to you and was like, what type of wide receiver do you want to add to DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown? Is there like a type that you would want, or would you just say, get me the best guy and I will figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always have to be number two. Like, whoever you give me, we can figure it out. With those two guys, like, whoever the third guy is, I think you're good, if that makes sense. But I think you have a clear one and clear two, and your two is a one for a lot of teams. So what are you looking for? You're looking for a number three guy who's actually like a viable guy. Like, I just feel like they haven't had, as even like a Hunter Renfro or like somebody who's just, can make plays in between the hash marks for you, can do the dirty work.
You love Hunter
Jason.
Renfro.
I mean, I'm not. There's not enough guys with my hairline or worse playing in the NFL right now. So, but like a Jason Avant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think they've had shades of those guys, but like never anybody that is like a winning player in there to me. Like they've been very interchangeable. God forbid one of those guys has a helmet break on a 2-minute drive and somebody else had to go in outside, because I don't think they weren't going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. So I think whoever it is, body type or whatever, like I think the quality of that third guy has to drastically improve.
Who do you like on day 3?
We talked a little bit about it. The guy that I've seen a million times on exchange film is Jalen Coker from Holy Cross. He's probably a further down the road guy, but he was just a big receiver, really good change of direction, really good ball skills. Like all the good defenses that we played, he crushed them. He's kind of the best guy that I saw, not just on our film exchange from the course of our past 2 seasons. I think he's really, really good. I'm trying to think here. Look at the rest of them. I don't mind a Johnny Wilson, a huge guy who I think can develop. The Eagles have kind of had that guy in there. I feel like in training camp every year, just a really big, raw dude that they're trying to. We're going to take a flyer on him, and he's going to be like the Mailata of the outside receivers and become a
Joseph
player.
Ngata.
Yeah, there's a long list. Bo would remember every single guy and know the day he got cut. But there's, I think somebody like that. Those are really the 2 that jump out from my notes.
All right. Well, Coach, what insight as always? How about any of the corners? Because I know we spent some time watching the corners that you really liked.
The guy from Clemson.
Yeah.
I thought he was awesome. I thought he was just a baller. Like a competitor, get in your face, chase down, cause fumbles. The 2 guys from Alabama were awesome, I thought. Every defensive guy's name is escaping me right now because I'm in spring ball. I can't talk. I can't remember absorb any defense. But those were the 3 guys I think that jumped out at me. I did not love Cooper DeJean. I thought he was okay, probably safety-ish when all is said and done. I know his numbers are different than that. Mitchell from Toledo I thought was awesome in the Senior Bowl one-on-ones.
Yes.
Obviously, I think he's probably going to be picked before the Eagles get a chance to pick him, but like he was a guy that you watch your film like, oh man, this is a good player. And then you watch the Senior Bowl one-on-ones, you're like, holy cow, he's smoking everybody. Like nobody's getting any separation. And that is probably Mount Union bias because the head coach and the defense coordinator at Toledo are both Mount Union guys. Full disclosure.
Zach's language.
But I do think they need a corner. I know I'm stating the obvious, but like something's got to be done. Everybody's getting old out there, and I think Bradbury is right now still listed as a 1, right? You guys, you got to do something about that,
I think that's probably fair.
My last one for you. This might be some form of confirmation bias because I don't have the data behind it. It seems just when I was looking at this and then going through Dane Brugler's The Beast, shout out Mount Union, right? That there's a lot more Ivy League guys this year. And perhaps it's because of the transfer rules, right? Guys who played Ivy League football and then they went to a quote unquote bigger school thereafter. In this draft, is the strength of the Ivy not getting enough credit? Is this confirmation bias on my end, or are you seeing that as well? That there are more draft prospects with Ivy League backgrounds?
Yeah, I think FCS football in general doesn't get enough credit. I think the Ivy gets decent credit, but I think that was the big knock on Andre last year. He tested great. He's a little bit older, but Andre has a big upside, and he got dinged for that stuff. I think there's a lot. It's funny because Ivy League guys now, the rules. A lot of guys for their 5th year are transferring to Power 5s.
Yep.
And getting an extra year that way. And it's, the transfer portal really doesn't affect us except for that. Guys who have completed their eligibility here, but still have a redshirt year, go play Power 5. And then, a decent amount of those guys are draft eligible or, guys that end up getting picked. And I think that's something that's different. If you take a guy from this league, like they're glue guys, there's never going to be an issue. They're going to work their tail off. They're going to be on time. Heck, they're going to bring up your team GPA, all that good stuff. And it's just like college basketball. They're also like established players. Like there are guys 30, 25 game starters in our league that can help teams out, as a nickel, or can help teams out that are looking for a specific positional need. So I think that's been different. I think again, FCS in general, I think it's very easy. It takes a little more projection. It takes a little more evaluation. And so I think a lot of people are just like, nah, we'll go with the guy from, the third receiver from a Power 4 or Power 5 school before the best FCS guy. But again, I think it has improved, in my 25 years doing it. Brian Westbrook, I think, went in the third round.
Yep.
When I was at Villanova. You could, the whole running back thing went into play there, but what he tested out, how he played, he probably could have been higher. But even then, that for us was like, oh my goodness, that was super high back in those days. Where again, you're seeing it more and more now. Quarterbacks getting picked and stuff like that. So it's the bottom line is it's an inexact science, and there's way too many coaches or ex-coaches involved in it that think that they know everything and they're exactly right all the time, and so it gets screwed up.
Same as it ever was. Coach, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Great being on. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Great to see you.
Great to see you. Great to carry on the tradition. Thank you. Have a great weekend, Coach. We look forward to talking to you again soon.